University of Washington Foster School of Business. My name is Garen, this is Kayla, this is Naveen. Judges are playing the role of Uber Executive Suite. We are playing the role of a strategy consulting team brought in to talk about what we're going to talk about. Quick notes on the roll sheets. Blank paper, take notes, whatever you like. Just to remind you if you stray off. We are ready? Good. Oh, there you go. So hello, thank you for your time. This is Kayla Erickson, Naveen Ahmed, I'm Garen Wedeking, and we are here to talk to you about Uber. But what are we talking about? Why are we here? I'll just take you through a quick rendition of the high-level stuff of what we're going to talk about. Kayla's going to talk to you a little bit deeper about what the problems are, and Naveen rather is going to talk about our three-point solution, and then I will wrap things up. So, who we are. I mean, we all know who we are. We're a top contender for an IPO this year, 2015. We're on the verge of becoming a global enterprise, over 50 countries, valuation at 41.2 billion. We've heard 49 in the press, huge, and going up from here. The press may say that Uber is a cab company. Our marketing says that we're a lifestyle company, but it turns out we're a data company. Data is how Uber is different than a cab. We are not our cabs. We are not our drivers. We're not our brand. We are a data company that relies on very specific tools. So we garner information from our clients. We garner credit card information, address, phone number, name, normal things that many companies do. But what's different is the last bullet point, real-time location. We're dealing with the physicality of our clients. We're dealing with the actual GPS location. And turns out, we've been doing this since the beginning, but we've grown so big, we have so many clients, that what has become our, the backbone of our company has become one of our greatest weaknesses. So, GodView. You probably have heard about GodView in the company. GodView is a really unfortunate nickname that we've given to internally which is a tracking mechanism. It's built on the technology that we use every day to fulfill our clients' needs. And this looks like it's drawn in MS Paint, but it's actually squiggly lines because it's that accurate at knowing exactly where you are. You, the CEO, you, the client, you, the driver, you, whoever you are, with an app on your phone. So remember this slide. We're going to talk about it later. This is Laura and Henry, right? They are part of a one-car family. They live in a little neighborhood in North Seattle. That also happens to be my family. This is an animation taken directly from pictures that are accessible on the account. All you need is a login. A login includes stolen login, black market bot login, classic hacking behavior that we all think of, or being one of Uber's over 1,000 employees that just has information and access to all of this. So we're talking about data security today. We're talking about our Achilles heel. We're talking about the one thing that can take us down. Competition is growing. We have Lyft, we have Sidecar, we have many other burgeoning companies. We were the absolute king of app-based transportation. We still are. We have a lot of competition nipping at our heels. What we need to do is transform what's become our greatest weakness into a new competitive advantage.
Thanks, Garen. So Garen has done a great job of showing what the problem is here for Uber that we now face. Our data security practices. Now, Uber is a pioneer in many business arenas, but unfortunately in data security, Uber lags a little bit behind the curve. And this is especially problematic right now because, as Garen talked about, we house more sensitive data than the average company. This information is especially attractive to cyber criminals when they can determine when consumers, where they are at every single minute of the day. And so it's time for Uber to recognize that this is not only a risk to our consumers, but also a risk to our long-term success as a company. So to exemplify our current approach to data security practices, I'm going to bring up the GodView tool one more time. This is a picture that was posted on Uber's Facebook page in Chicago. This is a launch party, a dinner where all the employees are sitting around, and as you can see in the background, there is the God tool displayed for everyone to see. Now this is real consumer data that's being displayed publicly without their knowledge. And then it's a picture taken, posted on Facebook. So this is a common practice at Uber. As you may recall, last year we had our hands slapped. There was a big media backlash over the reporter Peter Sims, who wrote an article about his security being breached. He received an unsolicited text from an acquaintance while he was in an Uber car, and the acquaintance said, "Hey, I can see where you are, where you're going everywhere right now in your Uber." And Peter, obviously, naturally, felt some concern, and he learned that his data was being displayed on a wall at an Uber launch party without his consent. He showed concern, and the texter shot back, "Why are you so worried? Calm down. You should be honored to have been chosen for this." So this article went viral. There was a huge media backlash. And it's these types of anecdotes that really shake consumers' trust and really affects our PR in the long term. So you may be thinking to yourself, all right, Uber is causing, or GodView tool is causing a lot of problems. Why don't we just get rid of it? But this is a very complex situation because it's an incredibly valuable tool to our company. In order to decide what to do with it, let's look at all the stakeholders involved. First and foremost, there are contracted drivers. They need the underlying technology, and this is the GPS location tracking. This is part of the value that we really add as a company. Compared to a typical taxi cab driver, this driver can see exactly where the consumer is when they call the car, and the rider as well can see exactly where their car is coming from. So there's no missed communication, there's no hassle, there's no wondering if your taxi is going to make it or not. We can provide that service to them. All corporate employees also have complete access to GodView tool, irrespective of their function or job title. We're not quite sure why this is, and there's currently no regulation around who can access it, and no consequences for people who use it, whether they need to or not. And then there are the consumers. The majority of consumers don't know that GodView tool exists and that their data is being used in this way. However, they have agreed to a terms and conditions stated by the Uber company. So although it's not explicitly said, they do agree to the terms and conditions. What really benefits from GodView tool are executives like yourself who really need this tool to be able to make sure that the operations run smoothly and profitably for the company. GodView tool helps us determine the supply and demand of cars, so we make sure that we have enough cars in a given location. It also helps us determine our surge pricing, as you may have heard. So, our price goes up depending on the demand that there is in a given location. So we do need this tool, but we also need to recognize that the usefulness of the tool, the underside of this is that it's also incredibly beneficial to cyber criminals. Our last data breach that happened last fall, there's currently 50,000 user accounts that are posted on the dark web. So for as little as $1, somebody can buy that user account information, use it as their own, steal their identity. That's currently going on today. So this approach to data security, unfortunately, has really, we've taken a hit in the media. And the media has run with this and really portrayed Uber as this company that is careless about data security and lackadaisical about consumer trust. But that couldn't be further from the company that Uber wants to be. At the very heart of our mission, it's to make transportation ubiquitous for everyone, creating the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And that's the foundation of consequentialism, right? So our mission is quite ethical. but it's our data security practices that skew our image to make us seem like we're not an ethical company. So currently, when we weigh the benefit and the harm of our services, unfortunately, it turns out that the harm outweighs the benefit. Most people are not willing to risk their physical safety in order to have a cheap and convenient cab ride. So we can easily tip the scales here by using our 3-point security initiative that we will propose in just a minute. That will increase the benefit, thereby tipping the scales, and there'll be less harm. We also need to state the duty that we have to our consumers to protect their data, and that's by respecting their personhood and the foundational right that they have to their own privacy. When Uber gives services in exchange for money, excuse me, both the company and the consumer come into a relationship that's built in trust. It's important for us to keep that fairness there in order to sustain that trust. If we break that trust, the exchange is lost. So from a legal perspective, our 3-point security initiative has no legal barriers, and in fact, this helps us better align as we expand internationally. Here's a map here currently of everywhere that Uber is operating, and the red indicates where we are currently banned. Some of these places we have tried to expand to, others won't even let us into the country. But some markets I want to highlight are the EU, because we tried to expand into Germany, we tried to expand into France, we were banned. And part of this is because the EU has such stringent data security practices. So if we were to follow our 3-point security system, we would be able to go into those countries a lot better. Essentially, losing these markets is losing revenue for us. We've also been kicked out of Portland, Oregon, and the state of Nevada. And I just want to point out that other markets, as we continue to expand, they'll take cues from this. I do want to point out that data breaches happen all over the place, and it's very common for popular places to have data breaches like Target. But that doesn't stop it from being incredibly costly and detrimental to that company. For example, Target, you may remember in 2013, had a data breach where there was millions of consumers' credit card information stolen, and that trust that I was speaking about earlier was lost for those consumers. And what that resulted in was 46% loss of their revenue for that year. And they're still trying to recover to this day. Now, Uber is not yet this tremendous company like Target. And so we really don't even have the luxury of losing consumer trust in this way. It could be very detrimental to our future. Said in a different way, if we look at the business implications, our practices, our data security practices, really lead to brand erosion. When we look at the needs that we have, we see brand identity as the gateway to fulfilling the customer's needs. If this relationship is damaged in any way, the consumers start to see our brand as something less than what we promote, or they see our brand as something that's very inauthentic, they'll stop using our services. We also will lose suppliers and contractors. Drivers won't want to work for us. People that we've partnered with for advertising won't want to work with us. We lose customers, which means we lose revenue. Also creates litigation costs. We're currently in several class action lawsuits as we speak. We don't want to create any more. And then over the long term, we could start to see more prohibitive policies across the globe. You know, countries could continue to ban app-based transportation in general, which would severely limit our business. So, based on everything I've described, Uber is really at a crossroads here. We can choose to ignore the issue and deal with the consequences as they come. Or we can recognize that there's a problem, take action, act swiftly and boldly to become the industry leader in data security practices. Our consultant team recommends the latter, and Naveen will be here to explain a little bit more of our proposed solution.
Thank you, Kayla. So we propose a 3-tiered solution that addresses the ethical, legal, and business aspects of Uber's data security issues. So Uber must develop a strong ethical culture, stringent regulations on data and security, and a more adept communication through brand repositioning and a PR campaign. of developing a strong ethical culture, Uber must revise the code of conduct and make it more available. Specify that data privacy security is a priority in the code of conduct. Currently, the code of conduct is very basic and it focuses on the actual service itself. Also, as you know, the code of conduct is currently hidden under the help section of the website, and so that makes it difficult to find. Also, Uber must train employees about data security and what the rules of compliance are. Have update sessions in order to make sure that the Uber employees are up to date on the most recent data security policies. And of course, monitor this closely. Also, Uber must give more transparency to employees and customers about data privacy policies. Establish and make it clear what the Uber consequences are and, what the Uber consequences are for violating consumer data privacy. It is also important that Uber's mission and values should include protecting consumers' personal information in order to help establish a strong company culture based on respecting data privacy. So as we all know, Uber's current mission statement is transportation as reliable as running water, everywhere, for anyone. So this communicates two things. One, to impact the greater good, and two, to add the most value to every customer. However, it's missing any mention of safety, even though this is one of the highest values for most consumers. So therefore, we propose providing the safest, most convenient, and most trusted transportation network for anyone in any part of the world. Uber as a global company should be trusted, and this new mission statement incorporates concepts that are more valued by the customers and also communicates Uber's commitment to safety. Ultimately, this is about creating a company culture of security around the brand that consumers will trust and believe in for years to come. So it is important that Uber values customers, and so that involves treating them as ends themselves and not as means to an end. For a solution to the legal aspect of data security issue, Uber should stay ahead of legal issues by dedicating resources to identifying problems before they occur. Use funds from R&D to invest in the most leading-edge data security practices. This may look like hiring a security consultant to come in and usher in new changes to the Uber system. Uber should also implement tighter regulations on God view, which means discontinuation of access to the tool for most employees and a reevaluation of the tool's necessity. Also, we can all agree that we should change the name God view to something not ominous. Finally, there must be regulations for stealing information, using God view inappropriately, or accessing any consumer data for non-directed reasons. I want to emphasize again that Uber should become an industry leader in data security practices, and we believe all the solutions will help do that. As far as addressing the business aspect, of Uber's data security issue, Uber must first acknowledge that there have been several data breaches and that we're funding new fraud detection services. Uber must invest in manpower and technology to provide the most leading-edge security solutions to customers. Secondly, Uber needs to increase communication with customers by developing a PR campaign that relies on transparency and customer safety. Uber must clarify why we need the customer information and how we plan to keep it safe. Another aspect of the campaign is to open a two-way dialogue with customers so that Uber can continue to learn how to make customers feel as safe as possible. As you know, with so much scrutiny on Uber as a firm, it is more important than ever to boost Uber's value to the customer. Lastly, in tandem with the aggressive PR campaign, we recommend rolling out a brand loyalty program that encourages customers to build on their current Uber use. This will reward loyal customers that have stayed with Uber through thick and thin, while also attracting new or previously lost customers. We believe, once again, all of these solutions will help Uber become an industry leader in data security practices. excuse me, yes, data security practices. So now that we have went through the meat of the presentation, I bet you're wondering how much this is going to cost you. So Darren's actually going to go through that with you right now.
Thank you kindly. So this is a bit of an eye chart. Red number, 4.6 million. That's the important one. We can definitely go over this later if you like. $4.6 million is the high end of the estimate of what it's going to cost Uber on an annual rolling basis to go through with this initiative. This is the marketing, consulting, financials, about $500,000 to about $2 million. That's a broad range, I know, but the magnitude is what's more important. And this is data security consulting, about $1 million to about $2.6 million. And this is ongoing annual cost. So what that means is that the first year, we all know consulting costs a little more. You got to get a little more manpower in there, up to even double in the first year. The $1.5 million figure is the probable savings from this initiative, just from data security, looking at comparable companies to Uber in the size and shape of likelihood of breach and cost of breach. Let me tell you why all that doesn't really matter. So $4.6 million at a $2.0+ billion company is this number of revenue, 0.23% of 2014 revenue. And this initiative, as revenues go up, will not scale directly with revenue. So that percentage will actually be going down year over year. So how are we going to figure out that we're actually doing this right? What are our measurements of success? Obviously, data breaches will go down, litigation costs will go down. That's kind of straightforward. Market share, which is what we're worried about. Market share comes from consumer trust. And growing market share in a growing market means lots and lots of profit. Positive press is something we haven't seen much of. You know that. Our idea of approaching negative press has been not dealing with it. We're going to be much more adept at dealing with negative press, and positive press is just going to happen because we'll be developing security roles. Security roles include VP and directors under the COO of data security. We'll be doing third-party auditing, both random and structured, and because of the culture we'll be developing, Uber employees will pass them with flying colors and will enjoy it. Well, not hate it. Industry leadership. We've been saying that a lot. What does that mean? Industry leadership, we're going to lead the industry as we have been and continue to be the leader in market share, leader in profit, but most importantly, how do we get there? We're going to be the leaders in data security of our customers. In conclusion, our 3-point security initiative is valuing all stakeholders as people and persons and not data points. We need to reflect the ethical foundation in regulation. And how we're going to do that is regulate internally with new policies reflecting our new foundation put forward in this initiative. Uber must then look outward and see that in the world as it's going forward, the market's going to be expecting much higher standard of data security, and Uber will be giving the highest standard. It'll be defining the standard. And finally, Uber must successfully communicate this value proposition with corporate and administrative stakeholders, so our corporate employees, and it also must talk about the value derived from this new initiative with our stakeholders who are our customers and our drivers that just day to day are the ones with the rubber on the road. Thank you.
First of all, thanks very much for coming and talking with us. It's probably a generational thing, but fortunately I have teenagers, so they've been training me quickly on some of the more contemporary resources and tools and other innovations that have come out of sort of this age we're beyond. A couple of questions, just first and foremost. It sounds like as you built the discussion and framed the problem, what we're looking at here is trying to resolve what otherwise is a clear gap and a significant business risk for Uber. Am I making sense? Excellent. Okay. And then you develop that in the context of what the financial obligation or commitment would need to be, and we would effectively be restructuring the organization consistent with that financial commitment effectively to resolve that gap and possibly make it an eventual strength. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So my first question is, you mentioned, and I don't know that I agree with this statement, but it's okay, that increasing share in turn will translate to increased profit. That's perhaps not so important. What's more important is what are our competitors doing? What is the competitive landscape in the marketplace? And what do you anticipate would be where we want to be 3 years from now?
I can take that one. So to talk about our competition, Lyft and Sidecar are the two main competitors. They do things very similarly to Uber. They definitely took their cues from Uber. They're newer. They are, I would say that if they were our size, they would have similar drawbacks and similar weaknesses. Sidecar and Lyft are both much more worried about fitting into the box of rideshare. So they do the donation platform, and the GPS location is a point rather than active. So the driver gets a point, they go to that point. If you walk down the street, they don't know where you went. So it's a small difference, but I think in this room it's a very large difference. So does that answer the first part of your question?
It does, in the sense that what you explained is there are companies that do things similar to what Uber is doing. At the same time, I would perceive that your competition, or our competition, is also family providing rides, taxis providing rides, public transportation providing rides. Is that part of?
Absolutely. So our competition outside of app-based transportation, so basically moving your body around that's not your own car, right? So the Muni in San Francisco is competition to Uber in a kind of a tertiary sense. It's but as far as ride for hire, I would say taxi is the closest thing to the app-based transportation model that's competition. And I mean, we know this in this room as executives. The reason Uber has been kicked out of a lot of places is because they're stepping on the toes of status quo taxis. And we are one of the biggest startups in the world. I still consider Uber a startup, even though it's got valuations of almost 50 billion. And taxi companies have unions. They've been doing things the same way for 60 years, and it's ripe for picking, but they're so entrenched in how they do it that we come in and we get kicked out. And that, I mean, we're getting kicked out because we're doing things too well. So our competition as far as everybody else outside of app transportation, I don't think we need to worry about more than Lyft and Sidecar.
Okay.
So as far as the financial obligations, I think I really wanted to drive home the tiniest slice of pie that this is going to cost. We talked to the industry professionals, one marketing consultant and data security consultant, and they gave us these ballparks, and we want to go with them because they're industry veterans. And even if we tacked a zero on there, it would still be worth the financial cost, even if there were no litigation savings. If all it was good press, it would still be worth it. You think about what's at stake here. You think about the physicality of our clients. It's something that we're unique in this, and that's why these finances, they're not going to change the nature of. We're not going to reorganize the whole company. We're not going to. If anything, we're just adding a few people. And the finances, I personally think that it speaks for itself, that it's more than worth it to dump less than 1% of our revenue per year into making sure that our clients are safe.
So you said that you don't think that these costs will scale up as we continue with these improvements?
They will scale, but they will not scale with they'll scale slower than revenue. So as revenue goes up, it will cost us less per customer or per dollar earned to provide this service. So the 0.23% of revenue, that percentage will go down. However, if we go to $4 billion next year, the actual underlying cost will go up. Does that make sense?
It seems that some of the issues that we have are based on the fact that the way that our business model is based on the way that we handle data and you know, having access to the GPS information and so forth. I guess the concern that I have is whether these tightening up of data security is going to constrain us at all operationally. Have you given thought to that? And if there are any issues there, how do we work around that?
Take that one.
I can take that. So what we were thinking is that there would be an operational team, mostly top management, that would have access to the GodView tool. I think our point was more that not every single person in the company should have access to it. And the people that do have access, their computers and all of their information should be encrypted so it can't be shared very easily. I think overall, because they're within the structure of Uber currently, there is an operations team and it's secluded from the rest of the company, that it makes sense for them to only have access to this tool. I don't see it impacting long-term the entire company. Does that answer?
Yeah, so that driver who's in that car and has access to everything, how are the protections going to be enacted such that he will still have the information he needs, yet the customer will still, their data will be protected?
Well, we get Uber has already started to rescind some of the access of GodView tool because the driver doesn't need the rider history of everywhere that the driver has been or where they're going to go. And also, the drivers don't need to know the GPS tracking of the consumer after they've given them the service. So we'll do something similar to what Sidecar has done, is they have a point that they know that they're supposed to go to, and that's the only access that they get.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm not really sure what you want to do with that much money. I mean, you're asking for a lot of money, and I do think we have some ethical issues, and then there's the data security. So I'm trying to decide, if you know you have an issue with the GodView, that to me it is a data security or data protection because people can hack in. But that seems like an easy fix on the ethics side. So those were some big dollars that you threw up there. I'm not really sure what you want a consultant to do. Like, what are you going to spend a lot of money, but what are they going to come in and tell us? Like, should we better protect our software? Because what you did mention is, and what I don't know is, like, does this company have a chief information officer? Do they have a chief privacy officer? Because I think that money could be better spent staffing our own organization. Rather than, pay a consultant, they come in, they leave.
Absolutely.
All right, so what do you want? Where is the money going to go?
So to start, if I hate backing up like this, to start, this is the boring finances. The way we came up with 4.6 million is full-time resources between 3 and 5 for both teams, basic hourly rates, direct management oversight from those companies, and we came up with a wide but important range, realistic range, frankly. And so the reason we want to bring consultants in is because this is a watershed moment. This is a sea change, and we are we will put in, like I said, a VP of data security, maybe a director or two, and team under them, to then take whatever our consultants that we're not experts in build and implement, and then own that. So that'll be maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, perhaps sooner. So marketing consulting is a little softer, but when the rubber meets the road, you need help with marketing sometimes. So we're not sure if the executive board would want to do a new campaign to very specifically name that they are exactly what they're doing, or make it a little bit more high level branding of data security. But that would be a discussion that would happen over the course of months or even a year. The data security consulting is a lot more rigid. It's very straightforward. You need to bring in people who are very good at whichever type of system you want to go through, and it's usually prepackaged systems the government uses, many companies use. Talked about Target, Sony, Home Depot, all these people that have been hit. They bring in consultants. The consultants either help build or help implement something from outside, and it's essentially just programs and practices that elevate you from following and being reactive to, like we would hope so, be a industry leader in data security. So does that answer your question about the money, what we're asking for, where we're going?
So that's just the initial outlay, right? That has nothing to do with salaries, long-term, So once they come back with the recommendations, then X number of dollars to hire this executive, employees, that's just the initial outlay.
So this is annual ongoing cost of consulting. So initial outlay is actually going to be slightly higher because you've got to think contingency with consulting, probably 20% to 50% higher. That's just a smart business move because they have a contingency fund for consulting. So again, I've been harping on 4.6, but it could be a lot lower. But the reason I was harping on 4.6 is that's getting rid of lowered litigation costs. It's taking the highest reasonable estimate, and it's showing that it's less than 0.25% of revenue. And I understand that you talk about percentages or you talk about hard dollars, and that's kind of apples and oranges. But Uber's money is very soft when it comes in. It's like I said, we're a startup. We scale. We could grow 100x, and our investors could have a 100-bagger, and it would be incredible for them. We're still a startup. We're less than 10 years old, and $4.6 million, if it goes up to $5 million, $6 million ongoing, that percentage is going to go down. It's much like payroll costs. And then to talk about bringing on people, yes, costs will go up. Uber has slightly over 1,000 corporate employees. This initiative might bring on 10.
If I may also add, so Starbucks, as we all know, they're a huge company, and they actually are now becoming more of a socially responsible company. And so now they have hired Chief Community Officer Blair, forgive me, I forgot his last name, Blair Taylor. And so he has a whole team under him that works for him. And now Starbucks is more of an ethically social responsible company. And so I think customers value a company and be proud of a company that they actually are using their service. And so I think Uber wants to become that company. And as the taxi app market becomes more mature and becomes more saturated, we want to stand out. And so as becoming an industry leader in data security practices, we will stand out that way.
Okay, other questions?
I just have one more. Just about the annual consulting. So do you really think it's best to have annual consulting? And really, because I'm kind of intrigued by this, the annual consulting versus paying the consultants, going out, getting the expertise you need, bringing it in-house, or do you really want to have, annual consulting costs? That one throws me a little bit.
Absolutely. So you look at
just trying to figure out where y'all came up with that.
Sure. Microsoft is maybe a good point of parity here. They have, in the 90s there was the permatemp problem that they had, and so they were defining people as temp employees, but they would work there for 10 years at a time. What came out of that is hugely beneficial to Microsoft, and that is bringing in companies that have a kind of a rotating model where the clients have an 18-month engagement or a 2-year engagement, and it's contracted. That's what this would be. I don't know if it would be 3 years or 18 months or 5 years, but it would be a specific time that the initiative would have a timeline. You would say maybe we would need 5 people the first year, 3 people the second year, and 1 managing director to make sure that we hand it off correctly. So the annual cost it's not something that's going to be there in 10 years, but that annual cost will probably transfer over to employees that we end up hiring in a permanent position.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so that concludes Q&A. So we're out of roles now, and we're going to have a chance to talk more directly to the team. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'll admit right up front, I never heard of Uber, and I never even knew this business existed.
I heard of him yesterday on the radio.
So it's probably a reflection of my generation. Anyways, but I learned a lot in your discussion, and you really made me think a lot. And you made me think not only just about a business that's fundamentally completely different from the one I work in, but also in the context of how you sort of structure a proposal to commit resources, substantial resources, to change what's a clear gap in apparently the business operating environment. So thanks for that. I guess some of the things I would think about is I thought you guys did an excellent job connecting the ethical phenomena here, really, in terms of the business model, which for me was that part about trust and confidence. Trust and confidence translates to sustainability of the business, translates to building the business, translates to building viability, and so on. For me, I felt like that made sense, and it related to some of the things I got to deal with in my life. In terms of financial, I appreciate that financial is probably a challenging part, maybe the most, but I give you guys credit for making a good stab at trying to create some sort of at least a beginning model or framework, which reflects well on some initiative, and thinking about what are some other companies who've dealt with similar issues and how at least they have begun to manage that. Because I appreciate that's not easy as well. So credit there. As I thought about this, and again, you guys made me think. I typically think companies will invest anywhere from about a minimum of 0 to 2% in R&D up until 10%. It's often a function of their model, their environment, and their value proposition. I would look for this type of problem being a clear gap, be effectively an R&D issue, in the sense that you've got to put capabilities in place you simply are either lacking or clearly deficient. So, I didn't see any problem with the money. In fact, to be honest, I think you'd want to put a lot more of it into it. But I appreciate the other judges may have a different opinion, and they have a good right to that. Thank you for helping me understand this is even out there. Thank you for giving it a fair, balanced, a good effort to try to give it a fair, balanced look. What do the other judges have to say?
I think something you brought up kind of briefly, you brought up the lift and sidecar having the single point versus the live view, and you didn't quite, I feel like, emphasize the importance of why we have the live view, and I think that would have been a really important point to just kind of say, you're doing a good job, kind of, you're talking to an executive suite who is supposedly like hiring you, paying you, so kind of patting us on the back, I think, a little bit more with that, as well as saying this is a good thing to continue doing. So I think that probably, because it was a good point, but if you'd emphasized it a little bit more, I think that would have been to your advantage.
Thank you.
One thing I really liked was even, I'm sure getting them to change their mission statement might be a very large amount, but I really appreciate even throwing out as a suggestion and putting in the safety and trust issues. And then the other part I thought was really well done was even thinking about the code of conduct and where it's located. What a good,
yeah.
I mean, that's a really good point about, we need to at least overhaul this and make it more visible if it's varied. I like that you brought attention to that. So.
I have a comment. From a presentation standpoint, I thought y'all did a very good job. I liked the way that you broke it up by subject matter. Clearly you had, an area where you were going to speak about, and you were the subject matter expert, so to speak. So I did like that. I thought the PowerPoint was really good too. And you also you didn't sound scripted. And I know that's difficult. I don't know how much you've done this, but you look very comfortable up there, which is really important. So you seem to understand the subject matter. Obviously, it's well researched, and I like that it was more conversational and in your presentation, and it wasn't like you were trying to remember what you'd written down. Or I like that. I think you did a very good job, and you all present yourself very well. Thank you.
Yeah, you did come across, I mean, I would have been convinced that you were really consultants and not
Yes.
students. Which is the first one that I can say that about today. I thought the graphics were excellent, and I thought that they integrated with your discussion in a way that it helped make your case. And so it supported the presentation well. Again, very professional presentation and appearance. You laid out the issues very well. I like the brand erosion slide. I mean, it was very simple, but it was a good point. And that's a point to make, and that's very important to executives, you know, that's something that they, and you're speaking to something that motivates them. I think that, you know, you're talking about the viability of the company going forward. I thought the proposed solutions were very well thought out and explained. And as I mentioned about the code and the mission earlier, I thought it was very good that you pointed out the deficiencies in the code and the mission. You know, because it's easy to say, well, we need a better code, or we need to have a code. You know, but the point that you pointed out that, hey, here's an important topic that isn't covered in this code, and how the code was very brief and so forth. And I thought that the explanation of the cost of the solution were good, and overall a very good use of data in your and analytics to support your argument. So, very good. One little criticism on that slide where you had the two columns, it might have been good to have a header to see, like, yeah, you kind of explained it in that, you know, well, it's the low end to the high end, but anyway.
On the financial one?
Yeah, it was
blue histogram.
Oh, yeah.
the one with the most numbers on it with a couple of columns. Yeah.
Yes.
I was kind of like, at first I was thinking, what does that column mean? What does that column mean?
Yes,
So,
okay.
not a biggie. No.
Mm-hmm.
You guys did not have any trouble with time this morning. In fact, if anything, as you present further, I kept wondering, first of all, you took about 10, 11 minutes explaining the background, and that was actually really good. I was really glad you did that, because again, I didn't have a clue. I had never heard of the business, and I never heard of the you know, sort of the category of the segment. So thank you for doing that, and you seem comfortable in a sense. It's like, wait a minute, you know, when are they going to get into this? But that was good, because it really helped sort of create a foundation by which you could then better connect with us and what we're trying to do here. So I guess one thing I would suggest is, you don't have a problem with time. You know, if you're going to, if you could commit another 3 or 4 minutes to content as in the future, what are the things you might want to, you know, pull together a little further? And I say it because we see this all the time where I work. I'm sure these other folks do as well. You know, nobody ever complains because you got done early, ever. Okay? Now, there are other groups that they're rushing because they're committed to, you know, cram all this content down sort of in the context. So you're managing time well. You know, if you want to do that, if there's more you want to do, you've got the flexibility to do it, and stay in your key 3 points as you go forward. Okay. I loved your crossroads slide. I want you to send me a presentation. That was very good.
Wonderful.
Okay. Good. Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, also just the 3 points, that was really great. I think that really making sure that you solidify and then pointing them out again and again, here are our 3 points, that is really great, because we're coming out and we know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And really say, legal this, ethical this, financial this. Boom, boom, boom. Good.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.